this is Grant Hughes of Grant Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Please hit that like button, share, and subscribe. Today's video is regarding the Idaho 4 murder case of Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonzalez. Bryan Kohberger's attorney, after they realized that their alibi fell short of giving any sort of information, put out a notice of defendant's supplemental response to state's alibi demand. And basically what it says is, Mr. Kohberger moved to Pullman, Washington in June of 2022 as an avid runner and hiker. I mean, he should have been on the cover of GQ magazine, if you ask me. He explored many areas of the Palouse. Of note, he explored Wawa Way Park in July of 2022. And this became a favorite location of his. So we're setting the groundwork for, he liked to spend time at Wawa Way Park. After the school year began, Mr. Kohberger was busy with classes and work at Washington State University, and his running and hiking decreased, but it did not stop. Instead, his nighttime drives increased. This is supported by data from Mr. Kohberger's phone, showing him in the countryside late at night or in the early morning on several occasions. The phone data includes numerous photographs taken on several different late evenings and early mornings, including in November, depicting the night sky. So obviously they're not talking about November 13th. They just want to show that he has a pattern of, hanging out at night, and he went to Wawa Way Park on different occasions, and these photographs proves he was in those areas on different nights. And then it says Mr. Kohberger was out driving in the early morning hours of November 13th. This is where they're getting to that night, the alibi, as he often did, to hike and run or see the moon and stars. Reminds me of a Steve Miller song. He drove throughout the area south of Pullman, Washington, west of Moscow, Idaho, including Wawa Way Park. So it's saying that he did go to Wawa Way Park in the early morning hours. That's what they're trying to claim here, that that's where he was during those early morning hours between, let's say, 2:47 and 5:30. Mr. Kohberger intends to offer testimony of Cy Ray, he's actually an expert that's been discredited in multiple courtroom situations. And Cy Ray is going to show that Bryan Kohberger's mobile device was south of Pullman, Washington, and west of Moscow, Idaho, on November 13, 2022. That Bryan Kohberger's mobile device did not travel east on the Moscow-Pullman highway in the early morning hours of November 13th, and thus could not be the vehicle captured on video along the Moscow-Pullman highway near Floyd's cannabis shop. So that's a piece of information we don't have in the probable cause. It does sound like he did drive into Moscow, Idaho, using that highway, Moscow-Pullman highway. I think if you look at the Google Earth here, you can see that highway is this one right here that goes between Pullman and Moscow, Idaho. And so obviously law enforcement has more video that shows him heading towards Moscow, Idaho. So getting back to this, it says additional information as to Mr. Kohberger's whereabouts as the early morning hours progress, including additional analysis by Mr. Ray, will be provided once the state provides discovery. So what they're saying is, we don't know what our argument's going to be. We need to see your discovery, and then we'll tailor our information to counter what you're saying. But if you don't give us this information, we are basically going to go out and say that you're hiding exculpatory information. Ray will provide once the state provides discovery requested and now subject to an upcoming motion to compel. If not disclosed, Mr. Ray's testimony will also reveal that critical exculpatory evidence further corroborating Mr. Kohberger's alibi was either not preserved or has been withheld. Well, how do you know? So you're saying critical exculpatory information. You're just assuming it's exculpatory for you, right? So you'd have to see it so you could tailor your information. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous, the wording and what they're saying right here. But this is an impossibility. Bryan Kohberger could not be at Wawa Park. And let me show you why. So you guys remember, I actually drove this route and timed it. There's 13 minutes of missing time up here where when the White Elantra speeds away at a high rate of speed at 420, and then at 448, it pings on a cell tower near Blaine, his phone. He finally turned it back on again. So we know that Bryan Kohberger's phone pinged off a tower in Blaine. Now, here's a cell tower. This is the one near Blaine. I think he turned it on about right here, still inside the 3-mile sort of general radius. You can go out further than that, but inside the 3-mile radius there. So I think it was down in this area. And that was 448. And then I made a video where I drove this entire route. This is exactly what they have on the probable cause document, this route here. It doesn't actually go to Genesee, and it doesn't go to Uniontown, but just north of Uniontown and just north of Genesee here. And it drives across on these crazy roads in the middle of nowhere and then comes back out onto Highway 195. So here is, in Adobe Premiere, I'll show you the time. This is 4:48. This is when his phone pinged. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it forward until we get to when it turns. It'll become daylight. So it's the exact same time it turns daylight, because I just want people to see various elements in the daylight. So right around this time, 4:53 a.m. it would have been. That is when the car, actually I skipped past this one. It's 4:53, 30 seconds, but I used 4:53. I wasn't sure what roads were which because my GPS wasn't working at that point. But it's this next turn here. And then it winds its way through the just really rural area. And here we go, taking a right. And you can watch this video. It's called Killer Hour. All right, so you'll have to go watch the whole thing. I'll put a link at the end of this video. It's a long video that shows the entire night. All right, but look at this route. This is the route he took all the way through, and then he comes out at the very end when it makes its way back to Highway 195. So that's right there. That's Highway 195, and I have it at 5:08 and 25 seconds. So let's look at Google Maps here. So this is where we turned off of Highway 95 and went into that rural area. And that was at 4:53. Google Maps says that you will get here right to 195, as I just showed you, at 5:13, but I got there at 5:08 because I probably drove faster than what the speed limit said. Even though I was driving kind of slow, they have it like at 15 or 20 miles an hour all in there. And maybe if you drive 25, you'll make it to here at 5:08. Okay? So that's when you would get here. Then if we take a look at this map right here, my driving time put me right up in this location at 5:26, and that's from all the way over here at 4:53 to here. If you look at that, 42 minutes. Google Earth says you would get there at 5:35. I got there at 5:26, and that matches almost exactly what the probable cause document, where his vehicle was spotted, the White Elantra, at 5:25, right around in this area, right here. It was spotted on a building as it pulled in, and the time that it took me to get there was exactly the right amount of time. It just felt like at a normal rate of speed driving, and I got there at 5:26 to the intersection of the Pullman-Moscow highway. Google Earth said I would be there at 5:35. All right, so that's just driving in just like that, and then his phone pinged at 5:30. Let's take a look at the probable cause document and just read this portion here. At approximately 2:47 a.m., Kohberger's phone stops reporting to the network, which is consistent with either the phone being in an area without cellular coverage, the connection to the network is disabled, such as putting the phone in airplane mode, or that the phone is turned off. Kohberger's phone does not report to the network again until approximately 4:48. That's when it pings near Blaine, at which time it utilizes cellular resources that provide coverage to Idaho State 95 south of Moscow, Idaho, near Blaine. And it's a town north of Genesee. Between 4:50 a.m. and 5:26 a.m., the phone utilized cellular resources that are consistent with the phone traveling south of Idaho Highway 95 to Genesee, then traveling west toward Uniontown, and then back to into Pullman, Washington. At approximately 5:30 a.m., Kohberger's phone is utilizing resources that provide coverage to Pullman, Washington, and consistent with the phone traveling back to Kohberger's residence. The phone, which is Kohberger's phone's movements, are consistent with the movements of the white Elantra that is observed traveling north on Stadium Drive at approximately 5:27 a.m. Based on the review of Kohberger's phone, estimated locations and travel of Kohberger's phone travel is consistent with that of the white Elantra. So there you go. His phone pinged back in Pullman, Washington at 5:30. And as you can see on this map, my route got me right back into Pullman, Washington, right around that time. If I was 5:26 here, by the time I got up in the area to where his house is, it would probably be something like 5:30. But here's where things go wrong for Kohberger and their new alibi document. Now, I even have it where it goes to Genesee all the way down here, and you would make it back up in this area at 5:36 using Google Maps. Just saying it doesn't cut across. So it would be 5:36. And that's just Google Maps estimate. I probably would have been there at 5:30 to that location, about 4 minutes slower than the previous map that we had on the screen. Now, this is the key information. So since his phone pinged over here by Blaine, and you would drive like this is the long route. See how it goes all the way down to Uniontown, etc., and then goes around up like this. You would make it to here at the park at 5:30. So how could his phone be pinging in Pullman, Washington? He would make it to that park by 5:30. Google Maps says 5:38. I'm just basing it on my speed probably. I would have been there at 5:30. So I'm giving him, the best estimate. Like he could have got there at 5:30. Okay, great. That would have been really fast. 5:38 is what Google is saying. And that's when he would have been at Wawawe County Park. All right, now let's take a look at the next map here. This is using the route that cuts across that the probable cause document has. So 453 cuts across, and then 5:36 is what time Google Maps says you'd be there. But I'm going to say 5:28 if you drove just like a little quicker and faster like normal people do. That's when he would have got there at 5:28. Then, take a look at this. It's 5:28, and then to drive to Pullman, you would get into this area at 5:42 if you were just really going fast. It's a 20-minute drive to get there. And if you look at, it actually says 20 minutes, so it would be 5:48. That's this label up here. But I'm saying if you went a little bit quicker, it'd be 5:42. And, maybe back in here it'd be, 5:39. There's no way his phone would be pinging in Pullman, Washington if he went to Wawawe Park. And that's if you go a route, the quickest route. Unfortunately, again, for Bryan Kohberger, that isn't the route that he took. If he did, if he's claiming he went to Wawawe Park, he has to also include that he took a right here on Kirkendall Road and drove up here because his white Elantra was spotted on a surveillance camera in this area, and then at 5:27 it's spotted driving up on various roads inside of Pullman, Washington. So given that route, he would have only been back into Pullman at 6:01 a.m. and if he drove fast, 5:50. So how does his phone ping in Pullman at 5:30? He's even, the crazy part is he's here at 5:30. All right? If he says he's there, then he could only have been at 5:28 at Wawawe Park. Because they're claiming that he went to Wawawe Park on November 13th in those early morning hours. They included that. I mean, that's absolute garbage, everybody. It's 19.4 miles away from Pullman, Washington. And that's as if he pulled in, he jumped up out of his car and goes, "Oh my God, it's cloudy," and jumped back in his car and drove away as fast as he could. I mean, if you're looking at stars, don't you stop for a little bit and look around And by the way, there was no visible stars, really. I mean, it was very thick clouds. I mean, maybe he waited around to get that one glimpse of a star that popped through the fog and the mist. I mean, this is absurd, everybody. You would have to believe he only stayed at the Huawei Park for 0 seconds, and then when he turned around, he still can't be there because 5:30 is when his phone pinged in Pullman, Washington, consistent with the White Elantra moving at 5:27. They know that that's his White Elantra. They're trying to explain why it's moving around, but it's absolutely impossible for him to have been at Huawei Park that morning. All right? So that is what I have to offer on this show today. I hope you guys understand exactly what I'm talking about. You could probably go back and watch through it again and look at the various times. And I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt of the 5:28, meaning that's my fast time getting there. And then even using that, it puts you at 5:50 at the Pullman, Moscow, Idaho highway there. Okay? So anyways, I hope this shows and explains to you exactly why the Bryan Kohberger explanation of his alibi is absolutely absurd. Thank you all very much for watching. And as I always say, until next time, be safe out there.